Jake here for Extreme Terrain, and today I'm taking a look at the PowerStop OE Replacement 6-lug front and rear brake rotor and pad kit fitting 2010 and newer 4Runners. Brakes are some of the most important components on your rig, especially if you are daily driving it or even if you're using it to its fullest extent. And if your 4Runner is in need of new brakes or even just an improvement, you can still make that upgrade for a reasonable price using this kit from PowerStop. This is a full set of front and rear rotors and pads, and it's going to fit and stop like your factory brakes with a little something extra. Now, there are a few places on my own vehicles where I believe it's worth always spending whatever the budget will allow, and brakes are one of those places. PowerStop's products are consistently excellent too. Now, this kit is meant to be a direct replacement for your stock brakes, both front and rear, with a little extra tidbits thrown in to make things just a bit more pleasant than your factory brakes. Now, the rotors, both front and rear, are of the solid vented variety, again, much like your stock brakes. However, the real magic here is in the pads. Now, these are made using PowerStop's own proprietary ceramic compound, and it's designed to give you really good bite while also keeping dust and noise to a minimum. So not only should this outperform your stock brakes, this should also produce less dust, less noise, so it's a total win-win-win. Now, the pads here are chamfered and slotted to help keep noise in bay, and you've got dual layered rubberized shims on the back here to help keep out any unwanted noise and vibrations. The same is true both front and rear. Now, PowerStop also includes brand new stainless steel hardware and new pins, so you have a solid refresh of your braking system with this kit. So everything's gonna stop better, you're gonna get less noise, and these will just generally outperform your stock brakes without any real fuss. This kit is gonna run you about $350, and that does make it about the least expensive brake kit in the category. It's a great upgrade, and it's still gonna cost you less than the equivalent parts from Toyota would cost, and you're gonna get better braking performance and probably longer life out of them as well. So for that, I don't think anybody could argue with it. Installation gets a 2 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and you should plan on this job taking you about 3 hours to complete. Now, brakes can be a bit of a difficult thing to do if you've never had the pleasure before, but once you've got one corner figured out, the rest is pretty self-explanatory and simple. And to walk you through that install process now, let's head out to the shop.
Tools required for this install include an impact gun, a ratchet, diagonal cutters, a screwdriver, 12, 13, and 17 millimeter sockets, a 17 and 19 millimeter swivel socket, microfiber towel, brake cleaner, and an optional M8 by 1.25 bolt to remove your rotors. What's up, guys? Today we're installing a set of brakes on our 4Runner, so let's get started. So our first step is to remove our brake pads from our caliper. We have a couple clips that we'll have to remove. We can slide out our 2 pins and then remove our pads. So first we can pop out this clip that's connected to our 2 pins. So we'll just push down on that and pop that out of the hole. And then we can slide that out of place. And then we can push forward on our pins to slide those out. And then we'll remove our second clip. Next, we can remove our 2 pads. Now, these are a little stiff in there, so I'm just gonna use a screwdriver in these 2 holes and just pry back and forth to slide our pad out. And then we'll do that same thing for our other pad. Next, we can remove our 2 caliper bolts. So I'm gonna grab a 19 millimeter swivel socket to take these out. Now I'm gonna leave this one in until we get our caliper hanger so we can hang this up and not put any pressure on our brake line. Next, we're gonna remove this 12 millimeter bolt that holds our brake line bracket in. We'll grab our 12 millimeter socket to take that out. And we can pop that out of place. Next, we can fully remove that last bolt that's holding in our caliper and use a caliper hanger or bungee cords to hang our caliper up. Now I'm just gonna hook this to the spring. And then remove our bolt. And then with our bolt removed, we can remove our caliper. So next we can remove our rotor. Now you have a couple options here. If your rotor just pulls right off, then great, you're lucky. If not, you can tap around the rotor with a rubber mallet since we are going to be replacing our rotors. Or since we have a threaded hole here, I'm going to be using an M8 by 1.25 bolt that we can thread in. And then we'll just take a 13mm socket on a ratchet to tighten that down, and that'll push the rotor away from the hub. And then once you get that to pop, you can pull your rotor the rest of the way off. So now moving on to the rear, we can remove our 2 slide bolts, remove our clamshell, and then use a caliper hanger to hang that up out of the way. So now I'm going to grab our caliper hanger and just throw that on the spring for now. And then we'll take a 17mm socket to remove our 2 bolts. And then with our 2 bolts removed, we can wiggle our clamshell off and then hang that onto our caliper hook. Next, we can remove our caliper bracket with our brake pads all in one. So we'll take a 17mm swivel socket to remove our 2 bracket bolts. Next, we can remove our rotor. We're going to do this the same way we did the front. I've got our M8 by 1.25 bolt that we can thread into our rotor. And then we'll take a 13mm socket to tighten that down. And then once our rotor pops free, we can remove it. Now before we install our new rotor and reinstall our caliper, we're going to grab our caliper compressor tool to compress the pistons in our caliper to make room for our new brake pads. So we'll slide this in. This one ratchets, so we'll just move it back and forth to compress our piston. Next, we can install our rotor. I'm going to put it on backwards first so that we can clean this side. So we'll grab some brake cleaner and a microfiber towel or some shop rags. And then we can flip our rotor around. And we'll spray down the other side. Now to hold our rotor in place while we reinstall our caliper, I'm just going to throw a couple lug nuts back on. And next we can reinstall our brake caliper. Next we can unhook our caliper and then we'll grab our bolts and thread those back into the backside of the knuckle. Now once we have our bolts threaded in, we can grab our 19mm socket to tighten these down. Next we can install our brake pads. So we're going to use some of the included lube to lube up our metal back plate. And then we can slide that in. The one with the wear indicator is going towards the rear. And then we'll do that same thing for our front pad. Next, we can install our new pins. Now for our bottom pin, we're going to be installing our clip with it. We'll slide that through, and then we can slide that through the hole in our clip. Now these two pins are going to go into our brake pad. Now the other side's a little stiffer, so we can get some diagonal cutters to make it easier. And then we can install our clip that connects our two pins. So slide it through the holes in our pins, and then we can pop it through the hole in our caliper. Now lastly, we can reinstall the bolt that holds our brake line bracket into place. So we'll pop that back in. And then we can thread in our bolt. Now once we have our bolt threaded in, we can take our 12mm socket to tighten that down. Now once you're done with one side, you can repeat the same process on the other side. After you're done with that, you want to pump your brake pedal a couple times to compress your pistons once again so that you don't overflow your master cylinder when you go to do the rear. Now moving on to the rear, the first thing we're going to do is compress the piston in our caliper. For this one, we're going to be using a different style compressor tool. This one will hook onto the clamshell, and then this piece will compress our piston in. So now I'm going to put a microfiber towel over our piston, and then we can get our tool in there and compress our piston back into place. Next, we can install our rotor. Once again, I'm putting this on backwards first so that we can clean it. So we'll get our brake cleaner and a clean microfiber or a shop rag. And then we'll flip it around. And then we can grab our two lug nuts to hold this in place. So first we can pop out our old brake pads. And then we can pop out our brackets. We're just going to match these up to our new ones. And now we can pop our new bracket in its place. And then we'll just keep doing that same thing for the rest of them. Next, we can install our clip onto our brake pad. So we're just going to pop that on just like that. And then we can take our included lube. We're going to lube up all of these metal surfaces. And then we can slide our brake pads in. The one with this clip is going to be towards the rear. And then then we'll do that same thing on the other side. Now we can reinstall our brake caliper bracket with our pads. So we'll grab our factory bolts, slide this over the rotor, and then we can start to thread in our bolts by hand. And now we can take our 17mm socket to tighten up our 2 bolts. And then once we have our bracket tightened down, we can go back and lube up the back side of our brake pad. And then we'll do that same thing on the front. Now, last thing we have to do is reinstall our clamshell, but first we're going to lubricate our slide bolts. And then we'll do that same thing for our other one as well. Now we can grab our caliper off the hook, slide that over our pads, and then slide our bolt through. And then we'll do that same thing on the bottom. And now we can grab our 17mm socket to tighten these down. Now as you tighten them down, this little boot is going to pop off. So you can just wiggle that around to get it to pop back onto our bolt. And we'll do that same thing on the bottom. And now once you're finished with one side, you can repeat the same process on the other side and then go back into the cabin to pump up your brake pedal. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the PowerStop OE replacement 6-lug brake rotor and pad kit for the front and rear of your 2010 and newer 4Runner. Thank you for watching, and for all things 4Runner, keep it right here at extremeterrain.com.